Yeah, I think so. Okay. I will call this meeting to order well after 6 o'clock, but much more quicker than I thought it would be. So we will call the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We have some changes. How does the commission wish to handle those?
Well, the change is all reflected in the agenda that we have in hand.
Yes, I
Then I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
The agenda that's on the screen there, you would be adopting, but we will be requesting a change for C1 and C2 once we get to those items.
Okay,
Thanks.
but we'll leave them there.
Yes,
For now.
we'll leave them there
Okay.
for now.
All right. I have a question on the agenda. Where is item 9.04 in the material packet? I did not see a 904.
Let's see.
Is
It
it-
should have been included in there. There was 3 total ordinance changes.
No, I read
But-
those. There's a
let me
903, and then there are 2 number ones, and I'm assuming that 904 must be the second number 1.
Hold on here. I'm opening what I have here. Okay, so it actually starts off with, it states on our PDF section 9.03, which was an age-old typographical error from when the ordinance was adopted. But it should indicate section 9.03, but it is actually section 9.04 in the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
All right. Old business, what's the commission's thoughts about the minutes for the last meeting?
Move that we adopt the minutes from the last meeting of July the 19th of 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the last meeting. All in favor? All right. Thank you. Okay, Ron. New
Oh.
business.
Good afternoon, board members and members of the public. Tonight, I have an application for a request to amend the Old Town Neighborhood Revitalization Plan that was originally adopted in 2019 for a decent swath of the city that's directly surrounds the Tanner Medical Facility. As we know, that this revitalization plan was a requirement for the developer to fulfill and the city to adopt in order for their low-income housing tax credit application to be realized. We adopted this plan originally in 2019, and the developer, as we see in our next item that we have on our agenda, is looking to make some changes to that development that would impact things like density, open space, parking, things of that nature. However, they are also lost my train of thought here. They're also going to be increasing units and things of that nature, and they've acquired an additional site that's under contract that would increase the amount of site area that is for this project. So with that being said, the revitalization plan should probably reflect the true and natural boundaries of the project as it's proposed today. So that's the only change that is proposed for this item. Developer has indicated or has attached a letter as well that we've submitted over to you guys that kind of further explains some of that, and they're also here in the room if you have any questions for them.
Okay, are there any questions that commission has for Ron? Or for anyone from,
So Ron, if I'm reading right, they're attempting to increase density, or increase the total number of 33 units. Where are those 33 units going?
Well, the next item on our agenda will delve deeper into that application and that alteration that they're looking for.
Okay.
This plan itself, this is essentially almost like a miniature, it essentially is a miniature redevelopment plan, if you will, for this area, revitalization plan. So they're just looking to, reflect the plan to reflect what they're actually looking to build, which we're going to see in the next thing on our agenda.
Can we wait to vote on the next one after we see it?
If that's the pleasure of the commission, you can,
Yeah,
absolutely,
How about
sure.
we hold, how about we hold steady and see what the next one is before we make up our mind? Because they said they want to do approximately 9.95 acres. If you can scroll back up to the map, please, ma'am, thank you. Where's the 9.95 acres we're talking about, just so we know?
We're looking at the area west of SR 61. That's a yellow highlighted area.
Yes, sir.
All of those lots there off of Old Town Road.
That's the 9.95 acres.
That's right.
Okay. That's the old housing authority right near the hospital.
That's right.
Okay. And that's the one that was voted 2 years ago, give or take?
Yeah, in 2019.
Okay. And that's the one we see that's been started but not finished, right?
Right. They started they've completed their first phase of the project.
Yeah.
So they're coming back actually just for the second phase. That's what they've made changes to.
Okay. When was Phase 2 supposed to be completed? Originally, when they told us back in 2019?
I don't have that right away, with me, unfortunately. I'd have to go back and kind of look through some more of those documents. I'm not sure if we even have that.
Okay, it just says on their documents provided, it says Phase 2, 2019, there was supposed to be another 110 units, but they're just now getting to Phase 2?
That's correct.
Any reason why 3 more years?
I'd have to defer to the applicant. you know.
Okay. All right, we can ask them then. Thank you. I appreciate it.
would you like to have the applicant come forward at this time? or-
Yeah. Be a good idea,
All
I
right.
think.
State your name, please. and-
Yes, good evening. My name is Chase Davidson. I'm the Director of Development with Walton Communities. We're a co-applicant with the Villa Rica Housing Authority. Happy to be here tonight. Thanks for having us back. I do have a presentation of some relevant facts for the next item, but I'd be happy to address some of the comments on item 1, or we can go in reverse order as suggested. I'll let the
I just had some questions. Originally, you guys were going to build 90 units. How many of those 90 have been built?
90.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And of those 90, how many of those have been leased?
80% have been leased to date as of 9/15/2022. 70% of the building is occupied.
Okay, how many of those, so of 90 units, I'm not great at math, 45% would be 50, so about 60 families, is that about right?
So the first phase was actually an age-restricted product, so it's ages 55 and up. And so we have exclusively seniors and active adults in this first phase.
Okay. How many
so-
people from the original housing projects ended up in that first unit?
There's 62 total, correct, Dick, on the entirety of the project. So if
I mean, these first 90, how many people
Sure, I
that live in
believe
the housing projects lived up in
roughly
the first?
half. I'd have to defer back to
Where'd the other half come from?
the other half of the residents.
Yeah.
Just from the local area. Anybody that qualified under the state's income and income qualifications and other standards.
So Section 8, right?
Not exclusively, no, sir.
But some of
It's
them are,
it's
right?
mixed income, so there is a.
But there are some that are Section 8.
Yes, there's some that
All right,
have
so it is a
housing
section,
vouchers.
somewhat Section 8 subsidized. All right.
It is low-income housing, yes, sir.
All right, now, and we want to build 110 more of these, right?
That's right.
All right,
143.
okay. Now, this 110, was it supposed to be built in Phase 2?
That's correct.
And that was supposed to be built in 2018?
No, sir.
Okay. When is that scheduled to be?
So the commission may recall when we came in 2019 with the original application, it was for approval of PD zoning, site plan specific, which covered both phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2. At the time, we set the standards for the total site development. However, we proceeded with financing through DCA and the state through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. That's a competitive process with scoring that changes year to year. So when we started the first phase, we applied for those credits, were awarded, and subsequently built the first phase of the 90 units targeted to the senior population.
Okay.
So the I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, no,
but
go
just
ahead.
the final piece of that is that the DCA will not award project. You can't apply for two phases at the same time. It's an annual process. So we have been attempting to qualify under that 9% program, have been unable to do so based on DCA's criteria. Some of that has to do with where they've awarded credits in the prior years, and they try to spread out the allocation of credits, and so it's hard to come back to back in the same physical location year after year. The phase that we're in tonight to discuss is part of the 4% low-income housing tax credit program, and that is traditionally a non-competitive application, although they have changed the rules for this year. And so we are taking advantage of the first opportunity to come back before the commission and try to get this project going.
And DCA, and that, just so everybody knows, what's DCA?
DCA, sorry, is the Department of Community Affairs, which is a state agency.
Yes, so it's state money, right?
That's correct.
Taxpayer money.
That's correct.
All right. So it's being financed by taxpayer money, and you guys are making money off taxpayer money, renting to people on Section 8, taxpayer money.
Well, there's a combination of private and public funds.
Yes, but it is this taxpayer money, right? Funding it.
Make just one statement about, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, please.
I'm Dick Chambers, Director of the Housing
Go ahead,
Authority.
Dick.
Get in front of the mic.
Just in front of
Okay,
the
thank you. We have a Section 8 program,
Yes, sir.
but we're not public housing anymore. We're under the Office of Multifamily Housing. Our Section 8 program is not tenant-based vouchers. They're project-based vouchers. We own the voucher, the Section 8 voucher, but it's called a PBRA, Project-Based Rental Assistance. And we're a RAD Housing Authority now, a rental assistance program. So when you say vouchers, we own the voucher. We have our waiting list like we always have, and we administer those, the voucher. We get a HAP contract, and so we do have a program, PBRA, and people don't call it Section 8 on the tenant-based voucher side. But technically it is a Section 8, but we are project-based to the unit, not the tenant. So the tenant does not move into our program with their own voucher. And we replaced all of our 141 units of public housing with those vouchers.
Thank you very much. Any further questions on this particular item?
No, it's not.
I'd like to entertain a motion then for item A, the revision to the Old Town Revitalization Plan.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I'm a member of the board of the Housing Authority. May I vote on this in this meeting, or do I need to recuse myself? What? Okay, very well then, Mr. Chairman, I think I need to recuse myself from this vote.
All right. Still entertain a motion to approve this item?
Make a motion that we approve.
Motion made, is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor of the motion, any further discussion? Any on this item? All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, 3-1, approved. Okay, one, moved on.
All right. So our next item that we have here is, hold on here, is ALT-02-22, which is an alteration to PUD application for the Walton development that we just spoke about. I reviewed the application in tandem with the 2019 documents and what has been approved by the city. And there's been a number of different changes that I would like to go over with you all. And forgive me here, it looks like I may not have the newest document here that I sent out yesterday. Just give me one moment. Here we go, okay.
Is that the email from yesterday, Ron, or today?
I'm sorry?
Is that the email from yesterday or today?
From
Okay.
yesterday. It's all right. All right. So what I've done here is I've split out between the different phases based on what year and the like that this project was approved and what phases were approved at what years. And just as a reminder again to all, the phase 2 is for 143 units. This is an increase of about 33 units from the 110 that was approved in 2019. And phase 1 is constructed at 90 units for senior, and these remaining 143 would be for family housing. I took a look at, of course, the site area is changing. They're adding another parcel that's just less than an acre. I have here 0.86 acres, and I have on something else 0.78 acres. So not 100% sure there, but in either case, there is an increase in the site area. So it's going from about 5.36 acres to 6.62. And the density is, the density that I had for 2019's phase 2 was at 20.52, and now they're coming in at 22 even, which is in alignment with the density for the first phase that was constructed. That came in at 22.16, so about the same. The parking space count has also increased, so we first came in with about 220 parking spaces. Now they're coming in with 270 parking spaces. But the parking ratio has decreased for that second phase from 2 parking spaces per unit down to 1.88, which is directly in line with all of our multifamily developments that we have approved thus far to date. So I did put a chart in a chart in here as well that does go over all of our parking counts and spaces per unit and all of that. So you could see here that we've approved multiple ones that are lower than this, a lot of them coming in at 1.6. And the open space and acreage has also changed. Let's see. This development, being that it was approved under the UDC, required it was a 20% requirement for open space, which was decreased because in the UDC we were allowed to give open space bonus to a developer if they were to provide amenities on the site for the residents. So that rule is now changed with our new zoning ordinance. but we have to review them under the UDC. And so their open space requirement was cut in half to only 10% of the site area. And that's what they're proposing for this second phase. And the first phase, I calculated about 16.9% of the site was open space. So their open space is over their requirement that they had from the city anyways. And they've also beefed up their amenities quite substantially. They're looking to do a clubhouse, community center, outdoor grilling, picnic area, playground, multi-use space, fitness center, equipped laundry center, and multiple different green spaces surrounding the site. And so when we looked at all of this information,
See the laundry center?
yeah, that's
Are they
what's
not
been
gonna be equipped with a
indicated
washer and
from
dryers?
laundry. I haven't seen.
There's an opportunity for laundry, washer and dryer in every home, but there's also a communal laundry center.
Let's see. So the staff is recommending approval, being that the open space, first off, the parking ratio is in line with the other approved developments. The amenity package has greatly improved to take into account the additional units and the reduction in the open space, which is very minimal. It's about 3%. So we're recommending approval on those grounds. And the applicant is here to answer any
very good.
questions also.
Well, we've seen the quality of Walton homes here as well as elsewhere, and it's excellent.
Yeah, I would say that out of all of the developers that we have worked with, and being that this is the only one that's for affordable housing, I would say no matter if it was an affordable housing product or not, the quality is of a market rate unit and a market rate project. So that's really hard to achieve when you're working with affordable housing. That's extremely difficult.
They've done an excellent job. Any discussion among the commissioners? You can participate in discussion if you want. If no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the item as presented.
Second? Motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 3-1. Thank you, Ron, and thank you for your presentation, and Dick, thank you.
All right.
Okay, that brings us to the
All right, take care.
item C, the rezoning. Ron?
All right, so we had an application that was on tonight, and an application that has been on our agendas for a number of months. It's commonly being called in the community the Highway 61 application. And it goes by RA-04-22 and RA-05-22 on our agenda. And this applicant has contacted us yesterday and requested a carrying of the application to the October meeting date. And I told them at that time that I would come and bring that to the commission and see what their pleasure would be. The staff is not against a carrying, but I would like the opportunity to explain to the public so they're aware of what a carrying of an application is. The developer is, and the reason for this carry request, before I get into that, is because the developer is still trying to hammer out some utility-related issues that, from a service delivery standpoint, that they are not able to overcome currently. However, it is something that they're still looking at avenues to resolve. And so with doing that, they needed some more time in order to get their plans together and have an adequate presentation for before this body. And so with that, the developer sent it over to us. We said, we'll send it to you, and here we are. And what a carry is when, because a developer is met with two options when they cannot move forward with a meeting. It's either they request for their application to be removed entirely from any future agendas, and it's basically an invalidated application at that point. They would therefore need to refile the application. Then they would need to submit notice and do all the noticing that's required again. What the second option, which is what they've decided to elect to do this time, because they did do that the last times, but now here we are today. They've decided, instead of having to renotice everyone again, because it is a pretty arduous task. I've had to do noticing up until the last several months, where we've switched off from doing city-initiated noticing. And so, being that they've already noticed residents at least 3 times, that they're electing not to do any further noticing. However, we will continue to notice as far as signage is concerned on the properties. As required, we will always have signs out there until it's been voted on. But as far as having to notice 4, 5, 6 more times or so, from a staff's perspective, we don't think that that's something that's necessary for them to do, especially being that they have this option to request a carry. So we don't have any issues with the carry itself, and we'll, from a department standpoint, make sure that we keep the public apprised of what's happening from our city website.
Very good. It's unfortunate that this keeps dragging on because there's a lot of community interest in this particular project. But if that's the desire of the developer and the approval of staff to carry, I don't think we should vote tonight to turn it down. So, but what's the opinion of the commission? What do you want to see?
I agree. I think a carry's a good idea. It may save us hundreds of thousands of litigation costs is what I worry about. I know a little bit about the project. I think there's a little bit of discussion needs to happen between the owners and developers and the city. Some things that need to happen, some numbers that need to be worked out, some questions need to be answered. I think it's a good idea.
I agree with everything that Commissioner Pilgrim just mentioned.
Any further discussion? Entertain a motion to carry this particular item?
I'm sorry if I could just cut in for a sec. We're going to need 2, being that we're going to handle these as 2 separate applications.
Simple.
We're going to need 2 motions to basically saying the same thing, one for RA-04 and then another for RA-05.
I'll motion that
Makes
we
sense.
carry RA0422 -20 or dot dash 2011.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
I'll also make a motion that we carry to the October meeting R-05-22:2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we carry the next item. All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Why separate the 2? Why can't we join them together?
Besides property.
So, oof, that's kind of a packed question, but I'm gonna attempt to answer it without prejudicing the application. I think there's strategy involved, obviously, in that. The applicant has chosen to bifurcate their application purposefully. I can only imagine it would be purposeful, being that anyone can apply for multiple parcels, right, under one zoning application. We see those all the time. However, I would just implore the commission to just take a close look at our future land use map. It might become more readily apparent to you why, but I would just say take a look at the future land use map for the two parcels, and you might be able to draw your own conclusions as to why there's two applications for this. But it is a right of the applicant to either decide if they wanted one application, so it's either one and done. If they don't get one side, they won't get the other side, or they can bifurcate an application and get one side and maybe not the other side. So there's some
Well-
strategy at play.
I've looked at the plans. They're pretty closely related.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, okay. All right, well, moving on. Item D, modifications to the zoning ordinance. Ron?
This is a really quick change that we're proposing here. This is to address actually two different things in subsection 6, architectural design. The first one is for the offsets and the projections of industrial buildings particularly is what I wanted to address. So the code section reads out as buildings with continuous facades that are 90 feet or greater in width shall be designed with offsets projecting or recessed not less than 2 feet deep and over intervals of not greater than 60 feet. So we've had a lot of conversations in the office about this, and we've had a lot of different developments that have kind of had some issues with this particular code section. And I'm only specifically talking industrial buildings here because this section covers both commercial and industrial. So for commercial, it hasn't really been much of an issue because they usually do want some sort of offset in the walls to kind of make them look a little bit more visually appealing and interesting. But for an industrial development, they're usually just a square or a rectangle. They usually have a pretty standard building regimen, and a lot of the industrial developers are kind of kicking back on it and saying, well, what is the purpose of this section, and why, what industrial building could possibly kind of meet those things, especially if you need it to be a specific size within a specific area. So we're at this point, we want to keep it for commercial buildings. That we do think this is an important code and one that definitely makes sense in an area that's going to have a lot of visual attention, such as a commercial shopping center or a commercial store of any sort. But when it comes to industrial, they're not really created to begin with for aesthetic reasons. It's for an actual working reason. Having, of course, machinery on the inside of the buildings and moving materials around and things of that nature, when you have walls that are constantly jetting in and out, that can become very difficult and can cause workplace-related accidents and the like. So we don't want to do anything like that, and I think this kind of applying it to industrial kind of goes a little bit far and beyond what we originally intended for this section, which really truly was for commercial. So being that it's not separated out, we would like to take the opportunity to do that now. And the second item that you see there is just to clarify again that industrial developments are exempt from this ground floor retail transparency requirement, which is at currently 75%. So that's a lot of glass, and I can't imagine an industrial building wanting to be created out of essentially 75% glass on the ground floor. So of course, there's some industrial spaces that have showrooms and things of that nature. This would not discourage them from being able to still do a showroom in the front sections of the store. We would just still consider it an industrial development, so that kind of gives them a little bit more to work with as far as the facade treatments.
Well, once I found 904.
You still can't find that one? It's
No, I found it.
You did? Okay.
And
All right.
found the changes, had read them previously, but, okay, any comments from?
I agree with you, Ron. I think industrial and commercial ought to be separate entities. I think they're separate things. I think they were thrown together. I agree. You're building a warehouse is different than building an office building. So I have no problem taking this out. I think it's a good idea.
And we're gonna probably also split this section further so it'll be a real commercial section and then a real industrial section some point in the future. But as of now, we just want to fix this one. But thank
Because
you.
I'm thinking the zoning, the area industrial going out 78th, the building that's being built right now on the right-hand side. I mean, it's an industrial building. There's no need for any sort of glass or that's a warehouse. I mean, that's all it's going to be. So I have no issue with that. That's an industrial building. So I don't think that fits the same as something you might put a Jersey Mike's sub shop in, which would be commercial. So I agree. I think they should be separate.
Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion that we adopt the modification as stated by Mr. Johnson of the zoning ordinance regarding 9.04 non-residential design standards with regards to industrial buildings.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? 5-0. Okay, item E.
All right, so another ordinance change that we have here, this is going to be for section 7.02 of the zoning ordinance. And particularly, we're looking at table 7.1, parking dimensions. This is to correct another duplicate that we have in the ordinance. Well, we have one parking standard in the ordinance, and then we have another parking standard in the development regulations, which is the engineer's document that he has, that's been in effect since 2018. And right now, the zoning ordinance, as we passed in 2020, has a 10 by 20 requirement for all parking spaces. Let's see, yeah, for all 90-degree, 60-degree, and 45-degree parking spaces. And that's a bit of an abnormal standard to have. Usually, you find a 9 by 18 parking space is pretty standard in most cities across the country. The engineer's document that he has it as a rule to have it as a 9 by 18 also. So we couldn't have one standard, and this actually happened already on a project where they would like to use 9 by 18 parking spaces, but the zoning ordinance only allows 10 by 20, and they're like, well, that doesn't mesh with your engineer's requirements. So with consultation from Bobby Elliott, the city engineer, we're gonna acquiesce, or we would like to acquiesce to the 9 by 18 parking space standard, since it is pretty universally used. So I think what's happening is a lot of developers are having issues with the widths as they keep stacking the spaces in a row. They just end up getting a lot less spaces in there than what they would like to get in. However, on the other side, on the flip side, from a more practical standpoint, of course, wider parking spaces. Who wants to park in a narrow parking space, get their car all banged up and the like? So there's some I think there's some practicality on both sides that really needed to be considered, and we did talk about that in the office quite a bit. Tom and I have talked about it. Bobby and I have talked. So we decided in zoning to just go ahead and stay aligned with the document that we already had, which was for 9 by 18, since we've had a couple projects that have had some issues with this standard, the 10 by 20.
Is there any impact on the minimum aisle width with this reduction?
Actually, no, I haven't changed. I decided to keep the minimum aisle width the same, actually. So I think it works a lot better from a site layout standpoint. Actually, if you flip to the next page, there's an illustration there that shows the 90-degree and then the 45-degree parking aisles. And, you know, I think that having a wide parking aisle is much better for a two-way operation, but certainly not for a one-way. So I figured that these were actually all pretty correct the way that they were. You know, 24, and then there's 18, and then there's 14, depending on what the degree is there.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Johnson, I have a question about parking in commercial situations. And I'm prompted to this by what's going on over here at Family Dollar. Family Dollar, Parking Town and 78th there, or, no,
61.
anyway,
Dollar General.
Commerce Road, what?
Dollar General.
Dollar General, yeah. We have cherry pickers, 6, 8, 10, 11 cherry pickers being parked there on an overnight basis and all weekend long. And we have 2 to 6 semi-trucks being parked on the surface streets around that building. And it's my understanding that that's not supposed to be an allowed use for 24-hour parking of those kinds of vehicles. But I didn't see anything that covered that sort of what I would call a violation, in any of this. So how do we throw the flag on violations of that type, and what enforcement is there available to us to prevent that sort of abuse?
Well, what I can say to that is the zoning ordinance is really not meant to be a enforcement document when it comes to everyday enforcement. It's more so meant for developers, right? And it's meant for when there's changes to a site that equal, specifically in our ordinance, 35% of the site must be increasing, or the building itself, or the use, or what have you. So that's the only time that our ordinance actually even kicks in to begin with. So it has to be something new kind of on the site. But when it comes to like truck parking, for example, recreational vehicle parking, stuff like that, that's something that will be covered under a property maintenance manual, probably a local one. So you'd probably want to speak with Jimmy Hitchcock in our department more so on that, but he would have to use the property maintenance code to enforce something like that.
So Jimmy Hitchcock, our code compliance officer, has been made aware of that situation and got with the manager of the Dollar General store and told them that they could not have that have them parking there. And they said that they were parking there without their permission, but they went out and put signs on the vehicles, and Jimmy kind of gave them that warning, like, it's up to you guys to keep them out, or you'll have a citation.
Since we're on,
Did give them the warning.
since we're on the subject, the other night I had to go out for part of my job. I do PBA work. I defend officers. I'm sorry, I defend officers who get involved in shootings on the job. And I had to go to Douglas County the other night. I got home about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I counted no less than 15 semi-trucks that were parked on Liberty Road, either on the off-bound, on-bound ramps, whether it be exiting onto Liberty, going down Liberty back towards 61, or vice versa. I counted no less than 15. That is a hazard. Someone's going to clip one of those. There's going to be someone die as a result of that. And I honestly believe the city has some culpability in that if they do not go along and tap on their window and say, hey, boys, move it along. And if we continue to allow them to do it, we're essentially saying it's okay. And we can't do that. We can't allow these trucks to continue to park there. Someone's going to hit, and we're going to have a family get killed or something because somebody's about 6 inches over the fog line. And I live nearby there, and I tell kids, you leave early in the morning, there are trucks parked all along in no parking areas. Since we're talking about truck parking, it's something that has to be addressed. Has to be.
It's definitely an ongoing problem in that whole area. And then we've got another situation where they've been illegally parking their semis on another person's property that we had to take care of. So that whole area it's very,
And if they don't want to move them, start towing them
yep.
and let them foot the bill. They got options. The option is don't park where the public drives. Find a spot to park it, plan your route better, get off the highway beforehand, find somewhere to go, but don't put us and the public in danger by doing so.
And while we're also on this topic, I know it's not exactly
Zoning related.
I'm not sure, it may not be, but I think it might make a lot of sense. I've seen this happen in multiple jurisdictions before, but passing an ordinance that that does not allow for truck parking on city streets, any public or city street whatsoever, after 2 p.m. or I'm sorry, it's 2 a.m. Something like that that prevents overnight parking. And then we know if there are parked there, I mean, automatically it's just hand them a ticket. You know, I don't know what the impact would be to businesses. I don't know if we have any businesses that are open that late, that are, or maybe are very early hours
If you've
of the
got a bill
morning or
laden,
something.
if you got a bill laden showing, hey, I'm delivering to Print Pack, or I'm delivering to so-and-so here in 2 hours, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you're just passing through and your clock's up, your poor timing does not necessarily justify your stopping. So, I mean, that would be my issue. Like I said, you're delivering you're waiting for Charlie's to open up, you're trying to get your Cisco truck in and get the food off, that's one thing. You know, they're waiting for the kitchen to open up, but otherwise, I mean, I believe you got to produce some sort of, you know, documentation showing that where you're supposed to be. But otherwise, I'm with you. I have no problem with that.
Well, I can bring this back to the police department and see if that's something that they would be interested in doing. You know, it doesn't hurt to, you know,
And the motor
to
carrier
ask.
division, the
Yeah.
the commercial motor carrier division could step up patrol in this area
We'll
if they
see.
would.
Well, that was a comment I was going to make. It comes back to enforcement. I mean, you
Right.
can have all the ordinance you want, but if it doesn't get enforced, and we know that to be the case in speeding, so, yeah, take it back to the police, but I just haven't seen any enforcement that's taken place. A trucker will pay the, $50 fine or whatever, and be on their way.
And Ron, you could tell the police department that you have our complete support and backing to request that they enforce this situation. Okay.
I will bring it up at our Monday morning directors meeting about all this too, because all the people will be there, so.
Good, would appreciate that.
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
These are great comments, though, nonetheless. This is what we like to hear. You know, it makes Villa Rica a better place, so anything I can do to help with that, let me know, yeah.
Well, getting back to the item on, on the
Yes.
table here,
Yeah.
do I have a motion to approve the zoning ordinance modification 702?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. All right, item F.
All right, so for our last item, this one's pretty simple. We're just looking to remove 3 different tree types from our ordinance here. They're just not, to keep it simple, they're not great trees. They're trees that we see all the time. They're probably the most common tree in North America at this point because they've been so overplanted. But we're looking to remove Leland cypresses, hybrid American arborvitae, and Hetz midget arborvitae from our list. So these are the go-to trees that we see in parking lots. They're usually the really shrubby-looking ones that are relatively kind of tall. They usually they're very skinny and tall.
I love the Leland cypress. I got like 40 of them in my house.
Do you really?
Perfect divide between me and the neighbor. Perfect. They literally form a border between me and my neighbor.
Yeah.
Better than a fence.
What we're seeing happen out here, and I've seen this, I mean, I've had this going on for a long time, but for the developments and parking lots, for example, they do very poorly. You always see them dead, right, in a parking lot. Like a fast food place has just been built maybe 6 months earlier, and you see them like in a row. Half of them are dead, half of them are alive. They don't do very well in hot environments like that. Especially in a parking lot that's surrounded by asphalt. So we want
This
to.
just apply to commercial developments, or this applies to residential? Because I plan on planting some more.
This would only apply to new major developments.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be commercial.
And this will not
residential.
require anyone to remove any existing trees.
Nope. This is just for all new plantings for like multifamily and commercial and large subdivisions and things like that nature. But there's so many other types of trees. We have a whole list of alternatives that we're telling folks that they can use, but nobody has come back to us and said no, because
What are
there's
the
so many other
arbor-
options.
What are they called? Arbor what?
There's arborvitae that are on here, and then there's Leland cypresses.
I don't know what an arborvitae is.
Let me see if I can get a
Is a midget?
picture for you.
Okay.
4 to 15
Do you even
feet.
use that word anymore?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
We're
yeah.
not allowed to use that word anymore. It's a small person.
Yeah.
Heard small person. I don't think we can use the word anymore. Occidental?
So here you go. So they look a lot like the.
I don't know what the hell they look like.
cypresses, but, that's kind of what they look like, but there's a ton of different alternatives to them that actually do survive better in our hardy zone and hardy district. So we're just looking to remove those. We might be coming back soon for an addition of some more and to make some more changes on this list once we have a little bit more time.
Not to play devil's advocate, do we like to have a horticulturalist that tells us this? Is there like somebody, is there a horticulturalist, somebody PhD in botany says, hey, these are good, these are bad, or we just,
We'd probably want to, we don't have a city arborist. That's what we would want to take a look at, like plans like this, or we don't have like a
yeah,
landscape
see, arborists get a little
architect.
weird though. They start hugging the trees and don't want you cutting on them. I just need somebody to say, hey, which one's gonna work, which ones aren't. A sea arborist gets a little weird.
Yeah,
They get up here and make love with the tree and stuff, and we ain't into that, but just, I just need what's gonna grow and what's not.
yeah. Same as I guess I could say the same about landscape architects too, but
Yeah,
but we don't. I guess I'm kind of the resident tree person
Okay.
in our department, so.
Okay.
You know, and I've had a pretty decent background in trees and
Okay.
landscape architecture, but yeah, so you know, there's just so many on these that are very common. But we've run into issues also, as you'll see on here, that we have so many tables that are just separating it by where the tree is located, and you have a whole different list of trees and all of that. That does not give a developer enough leeway in what types of trees that they can plant on their site. For example, and some of it doesn't even make much sense. Like why, you know, red maples, for example, which can go up to 60 feet tall. You know, planting those, being allowed to only plant those on a street or highway, adjacent to a street or a highway or a parking lot, and not in the interior of the site. For example, I would have to turn someone's plans down for that. What if they want red maples on the interior of the site? You know, so it's like, I think it's too stringent, and we need to just have one tree list, and, you know, maybe separate privacy trees specifically or boundary trees, you know, as a separate specific location for trees and types of trees, but I think the rest of the list really ultimately needs to be kind of merged together. Depending on the maturity height that they can get to. So in Villa Rica, we don't have very much to worry about as far as overhead utilities in most of these new developments, so I'm not too worried about there being a issue with the maturity height or anything like that.
Well, you sure came up with some names I've never heard of, so an interesting list. So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
I move that we approve the modification to section 708 as presented by Mr. Johnson.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes our agenda. Staff comments, Ron?
There's hasn't been any new applications submitted for this board. We just have just some variance applications for the council. So the next meeting in November, I may not have any items unless I have ordinance changes, because it's not enough time for an application to hit this board based on our schedule. So and the noticing requirements and all of that. So. If we do end up having, you know, and I'd have to communicate with you all, but if we don't have any items on, I would probably be requesting the possible cancellation of the next meeting, assuming, of course, we don't really know yet what's going to happen with that other applicant, but we're going to be kind of playing next month a little bit by ear, and we'll see as we continue to work with that applicant.
Well,
But
the
that
Carrie
might be
may-
the only.
May come back in November.
Well, October is what they're expecting.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, carry to October. Yep. So we'll see what happens. We're just gonna keep that date, open for them as they've requested, but that may be the only item.
Okay. Well, again, I would comment, we've offered to assist the council with variances, but have not heard any more feedback from that, so I don't know if it's been presented to them or not. But,
I have talked to one counselor about it, and Tom himself also about it, a little bit more, but I haven't really gotten much feedback myself, just yet on that. But I'll bring it back up to them and see how it goes.
Okay. Any comments for Ron? Okay. All right, next item then is public comments. Anybody wishing to address the commissioner, please come forward at this time.
I didn't sign in because I'm not.
That's all, you don't have to sign in.
Got a letter from Walton Communities.
Come forward, please, to the microphone and give us your name and address.
My name is Thomas Wicks. The address concerned here is 612 Old Town Road, my family home place. I know that I've always looked over the housing projects, grew up playing down there. Got a letter to come to this to hear about it, about the amendment or what y'all are proposing. I guess my main question is to them, if I got a letter, I know that it's across the street from me. I know that my aunt recently passed away. I think my cousin is trying to sell his property to y'all directly across from me. I haven't had a whole lot of concern until recently when I talked to my cousin. I didn't know that the property and the things in that area had gone like they have gone. I think my cousin is having to have the law every other day, come and tour his house because it's been broken into. They're doing drugs. They've burnt fires. They've put fires in his house, and I mean, all kinds of things going on. I guess my concern is I think it'll be an improvement, what they're asking to do. I guess I wondered how this is going to affect my property being across the street, tax-wise, how it's going to affect me personally. My cousin is living in my home and keeping it up to live there because it is my home place. I guess that was my only concern is how does this really affect those of us that's not directly on that side of the property but live across from it? How will we be impacted by what y'all are proposing to do? That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't imagine that it would have any impact, but would you care to comment?
That's exactly right. There wouldn't be any impact to it, and unfortunately I can't comment in regards to taxation or tax matters. But typically, when there's a rezoning request or an alteration to rezoning, that's not something that would impact surrounding tax values. Of course, values can increase over time because of the project itself, and the positive attributes from a project. But as far as specifically from any action taken from this board or from the city council on this adjacent parcel, it should not impact you whatsoever.
Thank you, Ron. Any other public comments? Yes, ma'am. Come forward, please.
I thought there was going to be a zoning meeting tonight about this little building
Name and
right down.
address, please.
210 North Candler Street, Villa Rica, Georgia, right here. My name's Valerie Booth. But anyway, what it is I thought they were going to have a zoning meeting about this building right down here at North Candler in Church Street tonight. It is zone commercial multi-use down there, and they were talking about changing it to residential. I think they were talking about putting loft apartments there, but there's been no discussion here tonight. The sign is down there, so.
That was not an item for planning and zoning. That was discussed at the last city council meeting, and it was approved at the city council meeting. So it's not an item for planning and zoning.
Okay, so can I find out the details about that? That'll work. Thank you so much.
I see no further comments, so I will close public comments and ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Well, 7:15, that's not bad.
Just an hour, right on it. Dave, take care.
Yes, sir.
You good? You good? Keep out of trouble?
I would have liked to see Wisteria be on that list of no planting.